How you doing, Dort Snort?
Yes, hello. Yes, how you doing?
Doing well. Dort, are you at least 18 and are you a believer?
Yeah, I was born 05/13, 2004. Yes, and I am a non-classical Christian believer.
Okay. So I mean, do you believe in things like the Trinity and the Bible being true and that kind of stuff?
Yes.
Okay, cool. So what would be like the most convincing evidence or argument for the Christian God being real?
The existence of morality.
Can you demonstrate that morality is objective?
Yeah, because everybody actually knows what's right or wrong on basic levels, and all morality is just based off of those basic interpretations of those principles.
Interesting. So how come when the Holocaust was happening, people didn't know that it was wrong?
No, people knew that it was wrong. They just had a justification in order to circumvent that wrongness. That's how morality works for modern day people, right?
So it's true because you're a mind reader.
No, 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 no. It's okay. So let me ask you a
So
question.
I just want to make sure you understand, Dort, that your argument for morals being objective is that you know what is in other people's minds.
No, that's not my argument.
Okay.
Okay, so let me ask you a question. Um, do you think any war at any time was justified?
I think wars of self-defense are justified.
Mm.
So, like, if somebody invaded the U.S., I think we have the right to defend ourselves. I think self-defense is justified, but I don't. Obviously, I don't think preemptive war is justified. Like, if we think that, oh man, maybe Russia is going to do something bad, we need to invade Russia. That's a terrible idea.
No, okay, so I agree, actually. So I believe that self defense is justified, right? But when you break it down to its very core, right? We all agree that when you say it is justified, when you agree that it's justified in self defense, you admitted that it would be wrong, right? If it weren't in self defense. So you have the objective morality that
No,
murder is wrong. So you
that's subjective.
circumvented that by making it. Uh, no,
It's
nobody actually
subjective.
believes that.
Have you actually met any of the Mennonites?
No, yes, I've met them, and they
Do
think that
you?
there is a justification for their
No,
murder.
no,
That's
they
why they make
don't.
justification.
The Mennonites are complete passive. The Mennonites and the Amish and the Brethren are absolute complete pacifists. In fact, I've got a book full of martyrs from the Anabaptist faith that literally, rather than defending themselves, allowed themselves to be murdered.
Yeah, okay, yeah, and that's true. Complete pacifism, but that's just based
Okay,
off the objective morality that murder is wrong.
so
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 they just don't
again,
have any
so
justifications
again,
over it.
you're suggesting that they have objective morals because you can read somebody's mind. But I'm saying that I believe self-defense is okay. A lot of the Mennonites would say no. If somebody comes in to kill you, let yourself be killed, and you can go to heaven. So obviously, saying that we just know one thing is either right or wrong isn't a good argument because they don't know it, and apparently they're closer to God than I am.
No, okay, so here's the thing, right? You two are not in disagreement.
We
You
are.
both think that the murder needs to be, or sorry, I don't want to get your live banned. Sorry, schmurdering, right? Um, uh, you both believe that schmurdering is wrong. They just don't have a justification like you do for self-defense, right? They just don't have that. But you both
Well, we're talking
agree
about
at the
self-defense,
base
not
that murder
murder.
is wrong. Okay, and that's fine. That's your justification on top of it, but you both have the quantitative idea that you ought to not take someone out of this world, right?
Well,
Or is that
we
something that you both don't agree on?
Well, the Mennonites and myself obviously do, but there are people around the world that
Yeah.
think it's okay to take people out.
Exactly, but they have justifications for it. Can you show me anybody who just thinks that it's okay to just go around and do that without being insane? They have no if they think that, then they are literally just going against their own morality.
Oh,
And
say
the
there
reason
you
why
go again. Your argument depends on reading people's minds. See, you keep saying
no,
it.
it's not reading people's minds. It's just that they have no justification. You can't name me a single person who goes around taking people out of this world and then they always have a justification because they understand base that it's wrong. Animals understand that it's wrong and they
Oh, I
have
don't believe that to be the case. In fact, if
Okay.
you watch enough interviews of like serial killers and whatnot, they don't have remorse. They don't believe that they're doing something wrong. In fact, a lot of these people, like some of them are sadomasochists. Like guys like Albert Fish had zero remorse over what he was doing.
Okay. So just because they have, again, a justification for that. They have their mind as a justification for that. But everybody on earth understands that taking someone out is wrong based off, because you don't need any culture or anything in order to assume that. If you took a
So,
bunch of people and
out,
babies and put them in a random place, they would instantly know that taking people out of this world is wrong.
right.
Instantly.
So let me fast forward the conversation because the argument you're laying down isn't helpful and it's not true and you can't read minds.
Uh-huh.
So
Yeah, you can't deny it.
no, I deny reading minds. You can't read minds, right? So
No, no, that's I literally gave you so many things of evidence, and you're like, "Oh, well, you can't read minds."
you didn't
I literally
give
just
you
said
didn't
if you
give
put
any
people in a
evidence yet. What I'm saying is that the evidence that you're laying down requires you to know what is in people's minds, and you don't read minds, and neither do I. So I'm trying to fast forward past the reading minds part so we can get to the substance part, right? So the reason why the majority of humans agree on a basic set of morals is not because they're objective, it's only because we are experiencing the same thing, right? So I experience pain, right? I know that it's bad to get like stabbed by a knife. I know it's painful. I don't like it, right? And because I agree that I don't want to get stabbed, I think it's pretty obvious that I would prefer in a society where we agree that we shouldn't be stabbing each other. Because if I can stab you, then you can stab me, and that's not the outcome that I want. So, as evolved beings that have thinking capacity, we've agreed to live in societies where we don't allow certain things. That's it.
no,
Yeah.
because that's wrong. Because that literally takes everything out of context, and also
Context of what?
if that is the only justification for your morality, then you are a deeply immoral person. If you're only
Actually,
following rules so people do not put those rules onto you, that's deeply immoral. You know that, right?
well, I don't think
Because that's
there's,
not how. Because
well,
I don't think
so in my
slavery is
worldview,
wrong just
morals
because I
are
don't want to be a slave.
subjective. So to say that something is deeply immoral just means that you have a subjective opinion that's different than
No,
mine. So I'm
no.
still waiting for the argument that gets me to objective morals because a lot of people agreeing that they don't want to be hurt isn't objective morals. It's just stating the obvious
That's
that the way
that's
we've evolved as entities on the planet tells us that like being stabbed is painful. We don't like it.
okay, right? But we don't create rules just so those rules aren't afflicted to us, right? Again, I'm not anti slavery or racism or anything like that just because I don't want to be afflicted by it. There is something, right? There is objective morality
I
in me where
disagree.
I think that other humans ought not to be hurt.
Where
That is simple.
where are the objective morals? Where can I find them?
Again, you find them in things that can be studied and replicated in I forget the term for it, but basically if you put any group of humans, no matter what culture, no matter what race, if you put them in isolated things from birth, they will always come up with a couple of objective moral rules based on their location, but
Yeah,
intrinsic things within
subjective.
their mind. No, it's not
It's
subjective.
based on
Because
their
taking someone out of this
subjective
world is always
experience,
wrong to every culture ever.
which is why humans can't actually agree on what is moral. Like we fight over what we think is moral because they're not actually objective. They're in fact subjective, which is why for most of human history, humans couldn't agree on whether or not slavery was moral. We used all kinds of reasons to say that it was moral. It wasn't until the modern age that people realized that maybe this wasn't a good thing. And like even the Bible couldn't figure it out.
Okay, so that's the thing, right? The reason why it was an argument is because people at the time, everybody assumed that we ought not to hurt humans, right? So the argument wasn't whether we should hurt humans or not, it's whether we're justified in hurting those humans or not. Again, the objective part of it is we ought not to hurt humans. That is something
That's
intrinsic to
that's
every
not
being.
objective, that's subjective.
Okay, can you
And
prove that it's
the
subjective? Can you
the
name a single
yeah,
culture where it is
because
okay to hurt other humans without a justification?
because the default position is subjective unless you can demonstrate otherwise. Because the subjective
It
position,
happens in controlled environments.
the
That's
sub
my proof.
the subjective position is just saying that the things we know to exist, the human mind, the way our brains work, That the way we're able to think and rationalize things, that's the subjective opinion. That's the default position. When you go to an objective position, you need evidence for that, because an objective position is saying that there's a transcendental category that is outside of our minds that we need to get access to, and that requires actual proof. So my position is the default
Yes,
position.
babies having morality is proof.
Your position is the one that requires actual evidence, and babies having a
Yes,
system
babies
of
having
morals,
morality is proof.
they are literally taught morality, which is why when little
No,
kids
I'm
first
talking
get
about
socialized
month-year-old
with
babies.
each other, they steal toys from each other, they hit each other, they do things to each other. They have to be socialized to not do that stuff. It's literally a learned behavior. Yeah.
So there are actual multiple studies, and I can link you studies where they show like a month or 2 year old baby, and they show them a puppet show where the puppet is depicted and doing all types of things, and the babies were put in a controlled environment to see which one they were gravitated to. The babies have always gravitated to the ones that were being fair, the ones that were being empathetic,
Not
and
at
the
a
ones
month
that
or
were being
two.
moral.
Your eyesight isn't even
Babies.
developed at a month or two.
Exactly, because there's
Okay,
something
so they can't even
intrinsic about
so they
morality.
can't even see the puppet show, dummy.
What? Are you saying that
If
a
you
month or 2 year
if
old
you're
baby can't see?
Yeah, at a month, your eyesight isn't good enough to see a puppet show.
What are you talking about?
In fact, I've got a medical doctor in the queue that can confirm this. Let's see if Ems is prepared. How you doing, Ems?
One
Are
second.
you
Hey,
what?
Ems, quick question. Can 1 month old babies see a puppet show?
In their face? What are you talking about?
Hello?
Just stop talking,
Yes, it was
Dork.
12 to 18 inches away. Yes, that was.
Sorry, Ems, I couldn't hear there. Oh, you with me, buddy? Ems? Oh, I think Ems.
Hello.
Hey, there you go.
Can you hear me?
Yeah, I can hear you. Yeah.
So, what was the question?
Is a 1 month old baby's eyesight developed enough that they can watch a puppet show and understand what's happening?
Understand what's happening. It would be depending on the child itself, but they would have a general grasp. At least in my opinion.
They can see the
I could
shapes?
be wrong. This is not something you. Yes, you have specific parts in the brain that are specifically for distinguishing between the shapes and drawing like parallel and horizontal lines to give you like distinctions between shapes.
Right,
But
yeah.
you wouldn't like. Would they be able to comprehend the concepts they're seeing? It would depend on the baby. It is not a hard thing.
Right, yeah, they
very
have
important.
shapes. They can see shapes and colors. In fact, let me I've got a graph or a diagram for this. Give me 1 second. So there we go. Here's what they can see. Let me pull open. Okay, you guys should be able to see that on a screen. So a newborn baby sees mostly blur. At 4 weeks, which is 1 month, this is roughly what they're looking at, right? So can a 4 week old baby watch a puppet show and have a reaction on whether or not the puppets are behaving fairly? I call shenanigans on that. Now, it is true that they've done puppet shows for small babies, and that they do react to certain things that we would call moral or immoral behavior. But again, these are all proof that we learn morals subjectively based on our experiences.
No.
As far
because
as I know, it is
perspective.
usually
On what
done
experience?
like way after, like 1 to 2 months. Like that
On
is a
what
little too
experience?
early.
Yeah.
Hello?
Sorry,
Hello.
I was listening to the medical doctor for a minute there. So I think you probably did read a study on puppet shows, but I think saying that they were 1 month old is probably not the right thing there.
Hello?
But we can hear you.
My fault. It's not going green for me. My fault. Yeah. So whether they were a month old or not, that's semantics. So basically, you're saying that these babies develop their subjective morality within a year. Is that what you're telling me?
What I'm saying is that we learn morality through
Mm,
our experiences and through our
mm.
environment and through what our parents show us, which is why one child could think that doing something is okay and another child could disagree. There are some children that think it's okay to steal toys from other children.
Okay, so you're telling me that these babies learn from their year of experience morality, fairness, and the ideas of violence. And they don't have any of that thing, anything intrinsic. There's just nothing intrinsic about humans under your worldview. Then, what is intrinsic about humans?
No,
Nothing.
there is intrinsic beliefs that would be held, but that is a result of evolution. You're a social
Oh,
species, of
so it's a
course you can
result of
evolve.
evolution.
No,
So,
wait. I came up specifically to ask you, how do you respond to the fact that specific parts of the brain that we do know and that we do study are responsible for moral processing, and that problems and lesions within them, pathologies within these regions within the brain, cause you to again change your moral compass or completely lose it?
I think that's extremely fascinating, and it makes a lot of sense, especially under my worldview.
It doesn't under your worldview. If it is something that evolved, again, through time, it would make sense that you would have specific parts designed, or not designed because that would imply creation, but specific parts that process morality, and not just some intrinsic magical thing that is within your soul, for example.
I never said it was an intrinsic magical thing on your soul. I just said that humans have
Then where does it
objective
come
morality.
from?
And
If you believe that it is physical, then it is expected under an evolutionistic worldview, as well as your worldview, for example, then there is no distinction. If it is something that is physically present within the human body, that it is something that would be expected under my worldview, as well as yours, then there is no distinction.
no, there is so exactly there is no distinction because God is
What is
the
the point of
natural
bringing this
world.
up?
God is the natural world. So if you just proved my point.
God
So
is
if
the
there,
world. Did I hear that?
yes, God is the natural world.
Oh, these
How
people.
is that laughing? How is that a laughable thing? What did I say was wrong? Can you?
If God is everything, then there's no distinction between my asshole and God.
If you want to say that, yeah, sure.
Yeah, that's
Because if
true.
he's the
So I'm
yeah,
not
so
inclined to believe in God, like a deity that just farted everything into existence. That's nonsense.
So basically, if you grant, or at least if you acknowledge that under my worldview, God is an omnipotent being, if he were not to be something, then that would render him not all powerful, right? So when
Oh,
you
I
say that,
disagree.
No.
okay, I don't
How
care.
does that follow?
So when you say that there is a gland,
This guy's
right, that
crazy.
makes objective morality, right?
It is not a gland,
God
it is a
created
specific
that
region in the
gland.
brain.
It's a
Yeah,
region
right.
in the
And
brain, not a
God created that
gland.
region.
Have you
Okay, so
tried
God
these
created that
talking
region.
points outside of like your weird like church cult?
I mean, you can just go to ad hominems if you
Okay.
want, but I need to get a negation.
So
God created the
the reason I
if
came up is because you said when he asked you what proves your God, you said the fact that morality exists.
yes, exactly.
So again, I asked you then,
It's
how
intrinsic.
do you explain that it is a physical component of the brain that is responsible for the processing, and when this component is harmed in any way, be it an infarct, be it any other specific pathology that happens in the brain, then you have neurological deficits in your moral processing. You said that that is then expected within my worldview and yours. So where is the
100%.
distinction in
100%.
which morality then implies God?
Okay, so the objective if it is a region in the brain, which I don't know, I'm just gonna assume that you
It
know,
is, you
right?
have the ventromedial prefrontal cortex and
I
also the
believe you. I just don't know
anterior
anything about it. I'm not going to make any claims
cingulate
on something I
gyrus.
don't know. That's it. I just don't make claims on stuff that I don't know. Right. So if there is a part of the brain that handles morality and then it is damaged, right, that would be away from what is intrinsically in you. Again, it would be another justification above your intrinsic morality. That just
No,
proves my
it
point
would
that there is
demonstrate
intrinsic
No,
that
morality.
because when it is
morals are
damaged,
subjective.
and
How
when
does
it is
that demonstrate that
damaged,
morals are subjective if they're a part of evolution? If what's subjective about
it is still
evolution?
subjective. Emotions, for example, are part of evolution and they're still subjective.
Yes. Okay. So let me ask you a question. I just want you to stand on one point. Is morality intrinsic or is it learned? Just
It
which
is
one?
learned.
So it's
It
Okay.
is both.
Okay.
it is a mixture of both, which is why like we can train animals to exhibit certain behaviors, and then when they have children, their children will exhibit the behaviors, not perfectly, but quite often. Ems, is that called epigenetics? Is that what they call that?
Could you repeat what you said?
When
I was texting somebody. I apologize.
when you train an animal for particular desired traits and behaviors, and then their offspring exhibit those traits and behaviors that were learned behaviors, that's called, is that epigenetics?
Epigenetics would have to do with like the activation and inactivation of genes. It
Okay.
has to do with your environment, for example, like how bacteria might express specific genes that could break down lactose in the presence of, for example, milk. That is an example of an epigenetic change. What you're referencing again, that is something that is carried down through generations, could be an example of epigenetic changes, and it also could be an example of your selecting traits. It could be an example of artificial selection.
Right. So, I mean, to the point, you can have behaviors that we would describe as inherent behaviors, both because of evolution, because of the way our genetics work, because learned behaviors can be passed down genetically.
Okay. If you think that, that's crazy.
This
I
is
don't.
this was the science tells us. Like,
Okay. Okay. That is fine. If you think that learned behaviors
ask a
can be
dog breeder.
passed down through- if you think that learned behaviors could be passed down by genetics, that is an extremely problematic worldview to have.
I mean, the medical doctor agrees with me, so I don't know what you're telling me.
I mean, I feel like that's a little eugenicsy, but that's
It is not
Eugenicsy.
eugenics. Eugenics.
yeah, it's
Eugenics would be-
100% eugenicsy. Yeah.
So how is selecting for traits eugenics? Like when I'm talking about like a learned trait, like loyalty, for example, or again a specific action that a person does. How is
How
that
about a learned
eugenics?
trait like servitude?
Servitude. So
That
you
could
can
be
select.
that could
you
be
can
passed down
select-
by genetics, right?
Some people
Yeah.
are more inclined to be submissive than others. Yes.
That's a lot. That sounds a lot. That sounds a lot like eugenics to me, brother. I
doesn't.
don't know.
I don't think you know what eugenics means.
So you think okay?
What
so
what do you think eugenics means?
It's so basically eugenics is based off of a principle that there are unalienable characteristics of people's genetics that can be taken out or taken or put in through Darwinian evolution, right?
No, not through Darwinian evolution. Eugenics is the idea that you should purposely tamper with the inheritable traits of the human species, and that you should literally like sterilize people that you don't want to reproduce.
Well, you're basically you're basically granting them the evidence that learned traits can be passed down by genetics.
They can.
That is so crazy. Okay,
It's
so what about
it's okay if you don't know anything about the body.
So you're telling me
So-
if my ancestors were in
Dort,
servitude, right?
Dort.
In servitude, right? I have servitude in my genetics.
No.
If the people who are controlling again, the people who are controlling your ancestors, if they were again, if somebody who was a little deviant or he was more aggressive per se, and they took him out and unlived him, and then they found people who were submissive naturally. Again, some people are more submissive than others in their nature, and then started making them slaves, for example, and then breeding them, and then you came along. You would be more likely to express submissive characteristics.
Ooh. You're literally okay. I'm done with you guys. You
Bro,
guys
literally
are
out here
talking
crashing
about,
out because
Bible.
he didn't think that he didn't think his talking points was
That
going
is
to fail
literally
that
what we do
hard.
with dogs. That is what you do with dogs.